7th in the Nauset Room of Town Hall at 5:30. This is a hybrid meeting that can be attended in person or via remote Zoom participation. Link is below and on our agenda on time, online. And you can also watch us on cable TV on Channel 8. Anybody here for public comment? Tony?
Yes, I had occasion a couple of weeks ago to ride in an ambulance from my house to Cape Cod Hospital. I want everybody to know that these guys came immediately. They made me as comfortable as possible. One of the crew was a recently hired and trained EMT that we voted on recently at the town meeting. I would also say that one of the wonderful services that the fire department provides is a lockbox into which you can put your key and they install it on your house. You have to pay for the lockbox, and that saves a great deal of time when time is of the essence. So I would recommend anybody get that.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Tony. So next item on our agenda is to review and approve our meeting minutes of February 13th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion? Corrections? Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. And voting, let's see, we're online, so John?
Yes.
And Peter?
Aye.
Ed?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes?
David?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Elaine, yes. So moving on to our next item on the agenda. And by the way, I'd like to introduce all of us. I think, John, you are new to some of the people in our room here. In the audience here, we have Judy Wilson, who is the director of the Council on Aging. I don't know if you can see her in the audience, but she'll be coming up. John is the newest member of our committee and learning the ropes to all of this. So welcome, Judy. Want to come up to the table, please? So, want to talk to us about your budget?
Sure. It really is an as-is budget moving forward. I got an email right before I came in here, and it would appear I had requested some additional staff, and I was hoping to combine some part-time stuff. But it's not going to move forward this year. So basically, it is an as-is budget, even operating expenditures. So the operating expenditures look a little bit different in places because we installed the heat pumps this year. So we were heating with gas until this season. This is our first season with the heat pumps, so it's a little bit of a guesstimate because we didn't have any invoices in when the budget was created, but we'll see a shift of expenses from heating fuel to electricity because of that. So we may need to move that. I mean, we kind of left it more or less as it was because we hadn't had any heating months when the budget was written. But so we're kind of keeping an eye on that. Right now, it looks like we're okay in terms of budget. The public property expenses are increasing a little bit. Well, I think it's $5,000, but so it is a higher percentage. But in FY '24, we spent almost $11,000 on repairs to our sprinkler system. And we're on, and that was unbudgeted. And we are on target to do the same thing in FY '25. What has happened is we've had to have large sections of pipe replaced due to rust. And my understanding is that every time we replace a section, it puts greater stress on the remaining older parts of the system. I feel like we're replacing it one pipe at a time. Ron has been in discussions with Gannon about the potential of using a nitrogen system. I can't really speak to that, but there is some thought that if we did that, it could stop the erosion. His project, though, not mine. So I did include in our FY '26 budget funds for sprinkler repairs, and that's what represents the increase in costs that we're asking for in that line item. The other line item that has an increase in it of $2,069 is our social day program supplies. That is 100% the cost of food. We purchase food, we feed our participants, we provide 2 snacks a day and beverages as well as lunch. And we purchase our food retail because we have no storage to purchase from another kind of vendor. So we're buying at Stop and Shop just like all of you. So at $2,000, I'm sure you can understand a $2,000 annual increase is reasonable based just on that. That's food. You can see that the equipment is down a little bit, and that's because we have repair service equipment is down a little bit, and that is really because we have new HVAC systems, and that's where a lot of our repairs were going to. But other than that, it's as is. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ed?
The number of individuals that avail themselves of your service, what is it now, and is there a trend? Is it moving up, being stable, moving down?
We are serving, so we call it unduplicated individuals. So we track Orleans residents. We're serving more. We're serving more than a third of older adults in the community. I'm sorry, I didn't bring the statistic with me.
1,000?
It's just under that.
Yeah.
I want to say it's about 1,500.
1,500. So.
Yeah. Yep, and that would be across the platform of services, so supportive day, transportation, fitness classes, all of it.
Historically, has it been around 1,500, or is it?
No, it's higher. I mean, we're definitely trending a little bit higher. We are definitely, we're back, all of our services are back to pre-pandemic. We're back to kind of having to make decisions based on availability of space.
You're doing a great job with roughly $1 million budget and serving 1,500 people in our community. Kudos.
Thank you. Thank you. And the other thing just to note is that our revenue should be consistent. We turn all of our supportive day revenue over to the town general fund, and I know to date it's about $132,000. So with still a quarter left, we'll likely meet where we were.
Tony?
Has the budget that you're presenting us been through the town management and they've approved it?
Yeah.
The budget that you're looking at is what, yes, after the review from the town manager.
Okay.
Okay, Peter?
Yeah, Judy, just a question on the increasing numbers. Is there also, I would presume, kind of a concomitant increase in the acuity level and the needs of folks that you're seeing?
It's funny, we talked a little bit about this at our board meeting yesterday. We're definitely seeing more need for economic help. Utility costs have become pretty high, and I talked a little bit about, we always think of like the Old Colony area as our kind of middle, not our low income, and their HOA fees have increased so much in the last 3 to 4 years, and then with the septic, and then they're all electric heat over there. And so we have had a couple of people with heat bills that they just couldn't manage. So we're watching that to try and make sure that people are availing themselves of NAG assistance programs and other things like that. But cost of living adjustments in people's income obviously hasn't kept pace with cost of living increases, particularly in our area. So we are seeing greater demand for kind of resource help around those issues.
David?
You made some reference at the start to, I think it was about combining part-time person or something. Could you elaborate on that? Because I think you got word that you couldn't do that, but what were you hoping to do?
So we have, so there are 23 employees at the senior center, and they're not all full-time. I mean, I did the FTE. For instance, I have 3 custodians, and the total time of my 3 custodians, I think, is maybe 48 hours. And we have 5 bus drivers. I have a bus driver that works 4 hours a week. I have one that works 8 hours a week. I have one that works 16 hours a week. So we were looking at the possibility of combining those positions, because the last time I had to hire part-time staff, we had a supportive day programs position that stayed open for 11 months. And I'm preaching to the choir. I mean, workforce issues on the Cape are huge, and it's really a barrier for us. I have a position open now in our supportive daycare program, and it is the one that was open 11 months last time, but I do have a couple of applicants. It's not truthfully a very strong applicant pool. And the last time we hired drivers, it was really challenging.
So specifically, were you talking about combining a janitorial service and/or a
Yes.
driver, or both?
Yes,
or-
and eliminating some of the small positions to offer benefits.
Right.
Ideally, it would be ideal to do it through, at times of attrition, so that there isn't employee impact, but that does have a benefit, that does have, it has a benefit to the department, but it has a cost impact to benefits.
So what I'm getting into is what was the differential? You got word that you can't do that. Was that from the town telling you it's not affordable, or?
Yeah, I just heard from Mark. Mark might be able to speak to it.
And maybe Mark could add to that.
Mark?
I'm just trying to get an idea of the delta, what does it amount to?
He's about to tell us.
So, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Mark Real, Assistant Town Manager. Just to bring some context into why I'm here as well, it's just that I know you all are probably aware, some of you may not be aware if you're new. We had a reorg in the town of Orleans, and so we've brought the Snow Library, the town clerk, the rec department, the Council on Aging, and the Health and Human Services Department under one bigger group called Community Services Department. And there's no department head in that department. And so I'm kind of filling that role of overseeing and working with all of the division heads. And so just for context here, but in terms of the conversation around the staffing, what we were doing, and we have our new HR director that started in the last month or so. And so, Judy has been talking with Kim, especially about this new structure and staffing to kind of mitigate the problems that she's experienced with finding people to replace folks as they leave. We are trying to obviously manage this budget this year, and so the numbers, although they were challenging, I think it's more about just re-looking at that with the new HR director and really making sure that we're looking through and getting a better grasp of the needs and the best approach to address those needs. So it's financial, but it's also really working with the HR director with Judy to find a good solution here.
So it's on pause, the decision?
Yeah, and actually just today, Judy had sent an email. She's losing someone else, and we are having active conversations about how to address this exact staffing concern that Judy has. So it's not that we aren't going to continue to work on this, but in the budget numbers that you see, there's nothing there that's addressing this issue. We're looking at keeping the system as it is until we can really get a handle on and know exactly what we want to do.
I might point out that we had the same conversation a year ago when Judy came to this meeting and said that she had several, I think 3 part-time positions that ought to be rolled over into 2 full-time positions. And yes, there's the cost of the OPEB, about a third more that goes to the salary with that. But I think one of the issues that needs to get addressed is safety at the Council on Aging when you've got a supportive day program where you have to have a minimum number of workers to deal with the type of client that you have in that program.
We have to maintain a ratio of 1 staff member for every 6 clients. So typically, we have to have 3 staff members there. So today was the person's last day. So starting we don't have a Friday program. So starting next week, I have to reassign staff. So it actually doesn't have an impact on the program. it has an impact on the rest of our operation.
But ultimately, Judy, it could have an impact on the program if you did not have that staff to go in there
Yeah.
and have that
Oh,
6
yeah.
to 1.
Yeah.
I mean, down the line, it would be that you would have to reduce the number of people coming to the supportive day program, and the supportive day
Yeah,
program
if
is
we-
an
if
income
we're una-
producer for the
If we
town.
aren't able to find somebody, yeah.
Cheryl?
And my name's Cheryl Kadia. I'm sorry I'm late. I appreciate all you do, Judy. I listened to you last evening when I was here, and I thought you did a great job presenting. So, but I want to say, too, that how is morale? When you are down a full staff person, then your team then has less people to do more work. So I am all for your strategic thinking of having full-time people because it brings a team together and loyalty and long-term. And I applaud you on that. So how is morale?
I have a great team. I mean, I really,
I know you do, so
I really do. I have fantastic people that I work with, and so it works. Truthfully, because everybody has passion for the work that we do. So I don't, it's not ideal, because when somebody gets reassigned, then their work doesn't get done. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like this whack-a-mole is what I call it. So we're in
Yes,
whack.
I'm still in the workforce, so
Yes,
I'll-
we're in whack-a-mole season. But morale, I think, is strong because I think everybody loves the work that we do. So I have that going for me. I look forward to kind of furthering this conversation because I think we all know, I mean, we've seen it in other positions here in town. We don't have an unlimited workforce here. And people that are working need full-time work and need benefits.
Yes.
So it leaves these little part-time jobs, the pool is small.
Yes, I hear that, and we hear that. So and we want to support you with that.
Yeah.
So I'll light a candle.
Okay.
John?
So to do all that you do, and again, congratulations on what you do, you must have some money that we don't see here, like grant money. Do you have the resources you need to go out and seek those other funds to supplement what you have here?
So we already use some of our grant money to supplement staff. So we use grant money, for instance, we have a 35-hour-a-week cook, but the cook takes time off, and we have plenty of days where we're cooking 80 meals. So we have, through the tax work-off program, we found somebody who was really good in the kitchen, and we scooped him up and hired him. So she is working part-time, and we use grant funds to pay that individual so that the town isn't paying for that other than the 3% cost because it's a non-benefited position. We use grant funds already to supplement some of the time in our supportive daycare staff. Most of our grant funds go to enhancement type programs. So right now, we're working on a grant for a caregiver support initiative. And truthfully, when you're looking for grants, you kind of have to stay apprised of what people want to fund, and staff isn't one of them. But in looking at the new initiative that we're working on, I have a staff member who's not at 40 hours. So that gives me some opportunity to use that person a couple of hours to do other work. So it'll work in that particular case, but I can't identify a lot of grant money out there. We do have other special revenues. Our Friends organization has been very clear with us that they don't pay for bricks and mortar issues, and they're not going to pay for staffing. And what they do, they want to pay for program services and things that enhance the life of older adults in our community. And we tend to use our special funds similarly. We have contributions and other funds that we've gotten either through a trust or something like that. And we really do, the town doesn't pay for any of our programs, none of them, except for supportive day. And that's why we turn our revenues over back to the town. We self-fund all of the programs we do. Support groups, fitness classes, recreation classes, educational programs, meal programs. We're self-funding all of that. So we do use a lot of grant money and other funds to make that happen.
To go back to the FTE, full-time, If, I don't know, when you speak with Human Resources, maybe you could speak about if you were to hire someone at 32 hours a week, can the benefits be reduced accordingly? Like they have to pay more, but they still get the benefits? Because some people are willing to, have more of a part-time and still get the benefits, but there's a cost involved. I don't know if that's even an option, but you can speak to HR at that time.
I actually have a meeting set up with Denise next week. I mean, she is relatively new, and so I asked for this to be put on the agenda for our discussion.
Tony, did you have a question?
I did. You said that you require 6 people for, how is that determined? That
It's a state guideline.
So it's a rule from the state?
It's a rule. Yeah. It's a safety.
Certification.
Yeah, I mean, 95% of the people we serve have dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So it is a safety, it's a safety measure. So any program across the state is following that same client to staff ratio.
David?
Quick question, I mean, this probably is obvious, so I'm just curious. You mentioned you don't have storage for food. Is it because there's no room in the building, so you just can't do it?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the kitchen is adequate. There's just no storage space in our building. I mean, there's very limited storage. We actually closed our building on January 31st for reorg day to clean out all of the shared spaces to make room because our offices are being filled with boxes. So we have very limited storage. We have some dry goods storage, but not that would allow us to order from Cisco, might be the organization that's familiar to you. We can't order bulk food. We don't have room to put it. We have nowhere to put it.
So a couple questions, Judy. With the Supportive Day program, Chatham is about to be opening their Supportive Day.
They are open.
They are open. What kind of impact do you think that's going to have on the revenue of that program? Does it open it up for other people in Brewster or Eastham?
So it remains to be seen, but this fiscal year, we stopped taking new clients from Chatham already. Chatham's commitment has been that anybody in the program won't be forced to leave. I don't know how that will play out moving forward. Their program is open right now 2 days a week, so they're just getting off the ground. And we do have some Chatham residents who participate in our program. And they have chosen to stay with us. So I think starting in April, I'll be reaching out to see what their intent is for FY26, because we usually look at the intermunicipal agreements come May, June, the following fiscal year. So would it have impact? It will have some impact. It's not huge. I mean, we serve the communities of Eastham, Wellfleet, Brewster, Harwich, Orleans. So
Are there any openings right now?
we do have a couple of openings 1 day a week.
Nick?
Just that presumably the population that is eligible for the programs is increasing, right?
Yeah, I mean, the over 60 population in our town is somewhere around 59%. And people are choosing to age in place in a different way than they used to. Our culture's changed. It used to be that generations would live together, but that's not the case anymore. I think one of the things we're challenged with is how many people we see living in the community alone with no family supports nearby.
Well, we get your program so often whenever it's published, and I'm just amazed when I go through the variety of things that you do there. And variety is wonderful, but it also involves juggling all sorts of resources that you don't have a lot of,
Yeah. You know what? I always say one of the best things about working in this town is this is a really generous community, and I have to say when I have gone after something, I don't hear no very often, which that's a blessing. I mean, and we have people who give money for projects that are kind of close to their heart. So we are able to be creative because of the generosity of the community.
A couple other questions. You had talked about having an assistant director so that we had some kind of succession planning in place.
Right.
How has that been playing out? I don't see any change in the budget that looks as though it's,
That, I don't think that's moving forward this year. The position exists now. I know that it was on the town meeting warrant in May 2024, so the position exists, but I don't think there's funding to move forward. It didn't move forward in the budget.
we also had talked last year vis-à-vis the Tidings newsletter about expanding its reach to include information, for example, about police, fire, you know, has any of that come to pass? I'm not aware that that has come to
Yeah.
pass when I read.
It hasn't, and in part because the print version is expensive, and we can't add pages because we can't afford it. We're already having to go to the Friends to help support it. We've heard from the community they still want the print version of it. You know, when you have something that's just an electronic, there's no direct cost, but paper has gotten expensive. And so we're not able to increase it. When we do receive something from the community, we do edit it down and try and include it in what we call our news nuggets. But I'm not it's very limited space, to be honest.
Okay. And then something else that, because I go to your meetings, your phone system. This is the first year on the capital improvement plan, there's not been a big chunk. So I infer from that the phone issues have been taken care of. You've got a functional phone system, your internet is working okay?
It's a work in progress. So the phone system, it became a much bigger project than I think any of us anticipated. We don't have the infrastructure to support anything but analog phones. So the building is being recabled on March 31st. And that's Peter Van Dyke from IT got a grant and is having that done. So we're kind of juggling our operations that week while the building is recabled. I think he's been working with Open Cape on trying to get the I'm not going to use the fiber.
Yeah, fiber optics.
Something from Defiance Lane to our location at Rock Harbor Road. And once all those things come into place, the money is still there for the phone. The phones became the least expensive part of the whole project.
So who's paying for the Open Cape?
Peter is
Fiber
overseeing that
optics.
project, so I'm not really sure, to be perfectly honest. I know that the recabling is coming, and I believe that was done through a grant, and that's happening at the end of March.
Okay.
It starts. It's going to be
Okay,
a
that's
week-long
terrific.
project.
That is great.
So I think once that's done, we're much closer to having that done. You had a second part to your question, Elaine. What was the other question?
Under your line item for maintenance contracts, that's gone from 56 to 7,500. I assume because you're paying for more maintenance contracts out there, as in on the HVAC systems.
I bought a new one.
That was down.
Isn't that, did I misread it?
Maintenance contracts.
Maintenance contracts,
Yeah.
up 34%? 5620, 7,500?
Yeah, it's up at 1880.
Yeah.
That's as is. So I think in part because, for instance, with our trash pickup, we're recycling more. So we have been paying a second recycling every week. The kitchen is really a big part of that. We have a lot to recycle. So we have that picked up. But that's as is. There's nothing new in there. So I assume some of that is probably a catch-up from the trash pickup, and then the rest is all projected. It's all existing contracts.
And
The
then
only other thing from a budget that I'm concerned about is that typically every fiscal year, we have a revised budget for salaries. So when we do our budget for salaries, we're creating a budget in October, November. That doesn't start for another 8-9 months. Typically, what has happened in years past is that the budget gets revised once contracts are all worked out and we have the actual costs. So I'm just a little bit worried about the fact that we're just adding 6% to the salary items because the FY25 amounts don't reflect actual costs.
Wow.
So it's not a lot. It's a little bit higher.
Okay.
And it's not a lot. It's as little as 12 cents an hour off, but as much as $1.13 an hour off for my employees. So over time, and those are full-time jobs. So
they accumulate.
over time, it's not a lot. But if we perpetuate it another year, so if we will be unable, you know, I say just adding 6%, if the real cost is going to be 6%, we're going to be short 2%.
Okay. Mark? Did you have-
So in the current budget, the FY25 budget, there is a reserve for negotiations.
Yes.
And so at towards the end of the year, we're going to make that adjustment there. So we have the money in the FY25 budget. And so then we also have negotiations ongoing for fiscal year 26, 27, and 28. And there's funds in reserve for negotiations there as well moving forward. And so the monies are built into the budget for what we're negotiating. So that addresses the concern about not having enough in these lines.
I have a really almost trivial question and a bigger one. So the first the easy one, because I think I know the answer. Do you have enough money for energy costs? Because it's flat.
It looks like we do right now, but I will say, we've been working off credits from solar. So I'm not in charge of how the credits, you know, we're not in charge of how the credits get applied. But we've been using a lot of credits. I don't know that there really are solar credits. That's happens in another department. We're within our budget right now for this fiscal year, even with the HVAC conversion. We're able to overspend. For instance, right now, we'll be spending more in electric than we will in gas. But as long as the bottom line is okay, I don't really have to worry about that. But this is our first heating season with the new system. So it does appear that we have enough money, but I know that I believe it's Kim Grant, the shared energy person, is watching that as well. Is that name right, Mark? Yeah.
So the big question is, when one walks into your building, it looks marvelous, you know. It really does. And then the question is it aging? At which point is it going to be an issue for the town?
Well, I mean, it is. I think, I would say probably about 5 years ago, we all got on the same page in terms of we need to start taking care of regular maintenance. I think the town's been doing a much better job of that over the last 5 years. We've made, you know, certain improvements. We've paid for some. The town has paid for some. We have paid for some kitchen appliances when they've needed to be replaced. We paid for bathroom stalls. We paid for sinks. The town did some plumbing. So we've done what we've needed to do to kind of, I think, keep it looking welcoming and, you know, nice for the people who use the building. The roof is a consideration, but Ron has that in his budget. Our parking lot and driveway needs some attention, but I believe Ron has that on his horizon as well. The DPW has been doing some work on the front side of the property. We have the garden restoration project, which is moving forward. It's actually it's not the first phase. I feel like it's the 7th phase, but it's the demolition phase of the garden restoration is currently in procurement, and we're getting quotes for it. And then probably a few months down the road, we'll be looking at the installation. That'll be funded through COA special funds and CPC funds that are already in place for that. Did that answer the question?
So in terms of capacity, you're okay, and in terms of aging of the building, you're sort of okay.
We're at capacity. I mean, we're kind of back to we can't do everything maybe we'd like to do because we have space limitations, but we're not the rec department.
Everything that we'd like to do, but can we do everything that the demand is there for?
I think one of the biggest challenges we have, so we have real power issues in our building, and about a week ago, we were experiencing power surges all day long. We were losing work. We were having black computer screens all day. We finally got Eversource out there, I think, for the 3rd time, and they did finally find a transformer that they replaced, and we haven't had a problem, knock on wood, since then. But we have we have some issues, with the building. There's some rotted trim. There's some other things that have to be done. The roof is not going to be a little project. I think Ron has that spread out over a couple of fiscal years, if I read the CIP right. We can't have a generator in our building. We're trying to get a generator just for our kitchen because part of the problem is that half of our building is in the flood zone. So we can't get a building generator like Town Hall has because we're in the flood zone. And our what we call our mechanical room, I don't know what the technical word for it is in the flood zone. And that's where the generator would have to be. So we're bringing a smaller generator in order to meet requirements for voting in the building, but also to get our kitchen appliances, specifically the refrigerators, the 2 refrigerators and freezer, because every time we have a loss of power, we have to throw everything away.
Well, maybe the Coast Guard can help you with the floating part.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know that that's a
Coke is a Navy
consideration.
man, yeah.
That's a consideration in looking, down the road. But obviously, there's a lot of big town building facility projects. So I think it's important that we take care of our facility because who knows what the timeline is.
Any other questions? I'd say thank you very much for coming, Judy. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
And thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Tom, you're next. You and Judy work together well, too. I mean, you do projects together because one of the things I was looking at under recreation, a lot of what Judy is doing at the Council on Aging, the fitness classes and things cross-reference with what you do as well.
Judy does a phenomenal job, and I don't think my budget discussion is going to be as robust as hers, but we'll try.
Okay, she's had.
So, mine's a little more straightforward. I'm looking at everything from FY25. So what was challenging last year, especially when I was sitting in front of you to discuss this, was I think we had to have the budget in, by December, and I started November 13th. So I was really operating off of FY24, and ironically what Judy was doing, because she was the fill-in for the time being as the interim rec director. So it was a little bit challenging because I didn't really know what I needed, and still we're expanding. So it's just always going to be changing, but I think I have a better handle on it this year. So one of the big things a big change is we got approval at the fall town meeting for a 3rd full-time employee. So that's in the FY25 budget because that was approved. But another big change that I noticed when I did the budget for last year was how we budgeted the non-union others, and typically that's our seasonal employees. And looking at it, for some reason, I don't know why, but I guess traditionally they would estimate, or I would really say guesstimate, how many employees they'd have and then have X amount additional just to make sure that they could cover all of their costs for the full summer. I did an analysis of how many children we had and how many staff members we had last year for the summer programs. And I was actually able to thin that price down around $12,000 because I think it was just a lot of fluff in there just to make sure we didn't exceed it. But similar to Judy, we don't have to have, I know she has 1 staff member for every 6 participants. For us in the summertime, we have to have 1 staff member for every 10 participants for ages 5 and up. And for anything lower than that, we need it, one staff member for 6 participants. So that would be 4 and under. So I was able to run all of that, and I was able to shave it down a little bit. So we're able to save around $12,000 on that. Another big thing is with our new employee, we don't have the need for a part-time employee that we did have that we were sharing with the town manager's office. But talking with Kim Newman, she mentioned that a lot of these things now, because I am also recreation, culture, and community events, a lot of the overtime, a lot of the different staffing for that should fall under recreation. So we decided to keep the $25,000 in there because when we do have events for, let's just say, DPW coming in at night or on the weekends, and same thing with police and fire, that overtime will come out of our budget for that. So that is staying the same. And then Uniforms that went up a little bit, $2,800, just because we are expanding our programming. I actually took a screenshot of something that I put in the town report. So in 2023, we serviced 1,316 participants throughout all of our programs. So 1,316. And in 2024, as we're still growing, we were able to service 2,230, so almost
Wow.
1,000 more. And with that being said, we have a lot more demand for uniforms, for different shirts, for activities and things like that. Training and continuing education was an additional $750, just because if we have another employee, I want them to stay up to date with all their certifications and anything else that they can learn. Postage was always $300 traditionally. We have not made any mailings because everything we do is through email or flyer and communication through that. So we were able to take that out. And then the other big thing is events or program supplies. In the FY25 budget, it was at $12,858. We are asking for an additional $12,000 for $25,000. One big difference this year is the recreation, along with the town, is really helping out with the July 4th fireworks. And I know Peter can speak on this a little bit too, because we've met and sat down, and as the cost of living rises, this was traditionally something that was funded all by donations.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, people just don't have as much to give as they used to. And we felt as a town, and anywhere I've ever been working prior, the town always helps out with that. So that's going to be part of this here on out. So whatever we're able to get in donations, that's awesome. But we will be, as a town, we will be helping assist with whatever else is left in that cost. So that's where that's coming out of, as well as with our new program manager, which will be culture and community events. We'll have a lot more going on in the town. So we just want to make sure that we have enough money in our budget for those programs.
I have a question.
Sure, Nick?
I'm always curious when I see the line skateboard park, because that's not our facility, right?
Yeah, so I believe, this is something obviously before me, but I believe that the three towns do give a certain amount of money towards the skate park. So I believe it's Brewster and Eastham also, and we give a similar amount to them for funding and maintenance on the skate park.
And who manages that money?
It is the I think it's Nauset Youth Nauset Youth Alliance.
Okay.
Yeah. And they do have somebody part-time that watches and monitors the skate park, as well as they, like I said, they do maintain it.
Okay.
How do the fees work for the users of your services?
Yeah, so anything that we're able to do in-house by volunteer coaches, we typically try to keep it around $30 for residents, and depending on the program, around $35 to $45 for non-residents. When we talk about, that's for youth. When we talk about for older programs such as pickleball or early bird fitness, we try to keep it around $20 to $30. And then anything that is vendor-based, meaning we have to bring an outside vendor in, what we try to do is just do a cost analysis of how much that program will cost. So let's just say it was, we had a program in the summertime where we brought a vendor in to run a week-long sports camp. And they were charging us $135, so we charged $135, yeah.
Do your fees cover your expenses?
So we have the revolving account so any of those fees go into the revolving account. But for the most part, what I've been trying to do, because the town for the longest time within this budget ends up covering most of those costs, right? But what I've been trying to do is, after every program, run my own budget analysis to make sure that we are right there in the black, so that we're not losing money. And over time, I hope, I'm not saying this is the case, but I hope that we'll be able to self-sustain ourselves. To lower that even more.
Here.
Yeah, Cheryl?
I
Tony?
think-
Tony's first?
You know, the town really only gets money from parking and from real estate taxes. And so I'm wondering why we can't raise the fees to totally cover the cost of these programs that you provide the town, children and others. Why can't we raise the fees there so that,
Raise the fees for the participant?
yes,
We're already paying fees.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think because then they wouldn't be able to participate. If you have we've already done a sibling discount where it's 50% off. And so right now, even to just play softball, and you have 2 children, you have to pay $45, and that doesn't seem like a lot, but if they wanted to also do dance, and then they also wanted to play the girls lacrosse this spring, I mean, it's over $150 to $200 for that program for just those 2 children. It ends up costing them quite a bit, and we want to make sure that we don't ever not let a child participate due to the cost of a program.
David?
I want to just
Cheryl?
tie on to his, so I don't want to cut you off, but I just wanted to refresh our memory that part of what is only a few things we can do to keep young families here. And I think that's one of them, just to help not damage it. Sorry.
Yeah, here on that one. Workforce question for you, Tom.
Sure.
So do we, as a town of Orleans, do we still offer swimming lessons?
Yes.
And so how are you able to find swimming instructors, or are you training them? Because I work for the YMCA, and it's very difficult.
It's very difficult.
So how are you doing it?
The best way, so I was fortunate with who Judy had the year before I started. Fortunately, all of them came back, and my one hope was to keep them as happy as possible so that they return this year, and fortunately, we're in really good shape. So last year we had 4 instructors, 1 assistant swim director, and then 1 swim director, and we're very fortunate that 5 out of the 6 are returning. So my plea to anybody, if we are going to need an assistant or a director, swim director, is we would pay for their certification, and you have to try to incentivize them as much as you can, because it's difficult. Everywhere on the Cape is dealing with
Yes, I just want Mark to hear that, because it is incredibly difficult to get people to even do the job, never mind find the certification. So what do you offer them? I mean, it's got to be more than a smile.
Yeah, so for the swim instructor, if they're just starting out, they start out at $19.18 an hour, and then it goes up from there. For instance, our swim director last year was at $28.43.
So as someone who's, just hanging around town, I might go down to the dock and just say, hey, I work for the Y, here's my card, look me up, because that is just too low.
Yeah.
Yep. So to be competitive, I just want us to be able to offer swimming, because we are both Skakit and Nauset, and we have wonderful opportunities. My 2 children learned how to swim as they jumped off of Meeting House Pond, because they weren't going to touch the bottom. It's so gross. But stick with it. That's great. I'm glad to hear that.
And I do just want to clarify, the lifeguards separate, those are through beaches. What we do is.
Oh, I'm talking about swim lessons.
Yeah. So I just wanted to confirm. So typically, the way we get the children to work is it's almost like an incentive program, in the sense of, hey, your first year, why don't you become a swim instructor? Next year, you can become a lifeguard, and we kind of filter through there. And again, we're just very fortunate. I try to do whatever I can. I think I was at swim 4 times a week just to be there, make sure that they were happy, and make sure.
Yeah, succession planning, that's really great. Good for you.
John? John's been
So are
waiting.
there grant monies, or we were talking about Orleans being a generous community, are there grant monies or donations that are not here? Do you seek grant monies in this field? Do you have adequate resources to go after grants if they are there?
We did not have adequate resources as of, hopefully, this person says yes to our 3rd employee. We just didn't have enough staffing to be able to do that. We were out in the field most of the time, or one of us had to be in the office while the other one was there. We only had 2 people. So we did not have adequate staffing to be able to go after that grant money. But the money's out there, and now that we'll have this other employee, it'll be able to alleviate some of that pressure, and we will be looking towards a lot of grant funding. When I was in New Jersey, I wrote several grants, and we were able to get just under $1 million presented to us for a park, and we were able to fund that park through that. So yeah, there's a lot of money out there, federally and state. So
Tony?
your programs like teaching swimming and things like that, is that open only to residents, or if there are visitors who come for the summer, are they participants in that as well?
So one really hard thing to do is to delineate what a year-round resident is compared to a seasonal resident, because if you pay taxes, you do get the opportunity. So what we end up doing is, like for instance, this year, March 24th opens up registration for our summer programs. What we do is we will send out an email to the school, because they have the database of children enrolled in school, to be able to register a week beforehand. They'll get that email, be able to register a week beforehand. On the 24th, it's opened up to all residents. Then on April 24th, whatever remaining spots are available are opened up to non-residents.
Fantastic.
Peter?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment, comments from, a lot of the younger, families in town I've been picking up, just a lot of energy, a lot of synergy, a lot of creativity is going on. So just a lot of positive kind of feedback and vibration in terms of the direction I think the town's going in recreation, as well as this kind of vision around community events and, trying to do kind of more things on a town-wide basis. Very commendable, to say the least.
Thank you. Thank you.
A couple things. One, just go back to fees. What were your fees, let's say, for the last year? I thought when we first talked about this, you said the fees you get cover your expenses. And then when Tony asked, it sounded like you may not. So how much are your fees, and do they cover your expenses?
They do not cover our
How
expenses.
much do they cover?
So, for instance, we made roughly, I have that number for you. Yeah, so for instance, we made roughly $40,000 in fees last year.
And have a $500,000
Correct.
budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
What obviously are the managers union, which is the full-time employees, and then the seasonal employees take up the bulk of it. So if you looked at the proposed budget of $59,000 for just the expenses portion, we could potentially break even if we. So I'm sorry. Let me explain that. I must have
It's
missed.
$460,000 you're gonna pick up.
No. I'm saying for the expenses portion. You mentioned, do they cover the fees?
Your budget.
Yeah, I thought,
That's
so
an
you're not,
expense.
but not just seasonally. You're talking about year round.
You get a little under 500,000.
Yes, that's
You
correct.
collect 40,000
Yeah.
from your participants.
Yes.
Okay. Mark, if he needs resources and that there are grants available that just simply have to be applied for, why can't someone in the town offices help him out and apply on his behalf?
I think that's, absolutely possible. We've got to have the grants come forward from Tom, and we need to hear that he needs help. But, we're a great team, and we're a new team, and so we're definitely establishing that. But I think when you're talking about, does your revenues match what your budget is? Every department doesn't bring in all the money that they're getting in their budgets, and so we do our best to bring revenues to expand programming. But the reality is,
I don't want
as Tom is building these programs, we should see more of that money coming into that revolving fund. The revolving fund is really where you want to bolster that revenue, bring that money in to try to pay for the programming piece. But it's not necessarily going to pay for your full-time employees. And so
I think
that's where
my
you see
question
the
to
larger
you,
cost.
I think my question to you needs to be clarified.
Okay.
It's not, mine wasn't about the fees or the revolving fund. It was about the grants. Grants are available federally and from the Commonwealth, but the poor guy doesn't have the resources to apply for it. Why don't you step in and apply on his behalf?
Let's do it. Tom, send me the list
do you
of grants
say?
and we'll get on it tomorrow. I mean, we've got to, that's great. There's a lot of grants out there, right? And so finding the right project or the right situation for those grants, you need to have that. So if Tom doesn't have the time to even figure out what grant he needs to apply for a certain issue, then we can't do that. But happy to step in here and provide that support.
So I just would like to clarify 2 points. One, and in Mark's defense, I have not gone to him yet. So, secondly, a lot of these grants are for project specific when it comes to parks and recreation. So I don't know if it would cover the quote unquote expenses of a day-to-day operation. The other thing I do want to clarify is I don't know the exact year. It was before me, but not too long ago were all of our programs completely free and fully subsidized by the town. And by them putting that $30 per participant fee in there, that was their way to start this and get the revolving account underway. We then changed the revolving account and how it functions, and we're able to roll over that money. So I think in time, we could potentially be self-sustaining. It's just, this is so fairly new that we can't see the trends
I
yet.
think that's laudable, but what just got me was that there may be grant money available that we can't go after. And I think somebody in the town's got to say, I got to help you out. That's all I'm doing. I want somebody to stand up and say, money's available. If he can tell me what it is for, I'll do the application.
There you go, he'll do the application.
He's your advocate.
You can
ahead.
enlist your recreation committee
There you
to
go.
help you.
Administrative fees.
Tony,
You know, I would like to
That'll just
thank
add to my
Mark.
expenses.
I would like to thank Mark for putting the resources behind this. And I would also say that to the degree you may be able to go to some of the parents of some of your participants and ask them for help to get these grants. There are a lot of volunteer help may be available, even though they're working hard and stuff. But when they see that they can get a grant from the state to help their kids, that's a pretty powerful request. And I would, I know that's going to take more time, but you know, I'll volunteer. You know, Grandpa can come over and say, "Hey, why don't you do something for your children like I did for mine?"
you know, Tony, to your point, some years ago, and David, you may remember this, there was a family in Brewster that funded the football field at Nauset High School. So, I mean, there are families out there that was put together, the whole football team, equipment, the whole 9 yards. Very serious.
There's pockets if we ask for it, I believe.
Changing the subject, Mark, did you want to comment? Your hand
I
was
was
here.
just going to wrap this up on that subject and say, you know, we have the resources to provide support for grant application.
And now we
No.
will have it in-house as well, so.
It's
Can't
gonna
wait to
be-
hear the first one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
there.
yes. I'll give you
Can do.
10%.
So one of the things I'd like to look at, Tom, with the change in description of what you do, recreation, culture, and community events, and we've talked to the police, I see the fire department back there. Who and where is the security for some of these culture events? For example, the outdoor concerts that are happening at the Village Green and so on.
So I'm sorry, could you just clarify? the question?
Security,
Yeah. So
safety.
You're asking where they are?
Where,
or-
where is that funded? That's out of the police department. So when
Yeah,
it says.
so that conversation will be had, because again, this money has not been approved yet. So after it gets approved, that conversation will be had regarding how we will work on divvying that out. This is brand new. I think the Recreation, Culture, and Community Events Division, it was recently named about 2 months ago. So what we're trying to do is, first and foremost, any of the town-wide events, any of the organizations that are currently putting on town events, a lot of the times they don't know where to go, they don't know who to talk to, and they don't know what permits to get. So we're hoping that this person will be able to come in, one, be able to facilitate who they need to go to, what permits need to be had, create a booklet, create a calendar of all these different events, and then after they feel comfortable and everything's been rolled out, they'll be creating new events, one-off events, whether those are.
It's terrific.
So to clarify, we'll be working on that. We don't have the answer just yet.
If 2 years ago, we couldn't have had a meeting like this because nobody could have told us anything, you know. So what you've done in the last 2 years is a wonder. I mean, it's terrific. So we might say, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? But, you know, you're still drinking from the fire hose there. So I think we have to put it in perspective, because you jumped in a vacuum. You know?
Thank you.
And literally a vacuum. I mean, everything was getting sucked out of recreation.
Yeah.
I mean, and you've really, you and the town have really put it back on the,
It's exciting, and it's a lot of volunteer work, and it's a lot of people here at Town Hall that help us succeed. And it's kind of, it's very motivating. And to have these questions, and all it does is just reinforce what else we need to do. So it's an exciting time, and, it's almost 2 years now, and it's been a great experience, so I just can't wait to continue.
yeah, because I mean, you've got the smaller picture of what is recreation, but that has a huge economic impact around the town, especially when you start putting in the whole culture, community events under that same umbrella. It brings more people into our community. I think it's terrific. I think you've been doing a great job, so
Thank you.
thank you.
I just wanted to suggest that, we've been asking all the other heads, but I don't think we should ask you about succession planning.
Yeah.
I
Thank
have
you,
a few
David.
more years left.
Thank you. Like, any other questions? No, then, in which case, thanks very much, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay. Moving right along. Hello, Jeff.
Good evening. Chief.
Good evening. Jeff, I want to introduce our newest Finance Committee member, John Cooper, who's up there on Zoom,
Good evening, John. Good evening, everybody.
and his assistant, Tim Gula. Hi. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Deputy Chief.
And we have, I don't know if he's done it yet. Obviously he hasn't. Wouldn't need an introduction, but we have urged him to come and visit you and take the tour.
We're open 24 hours a day. Come on over.
To that point of being open 24 hours a day, I have to say something that Nick and I and Lynn have done is the Fire Academy. Do you have any plans of doing
We
that
are
again?
looking at doing that again, yeah.
I mean, that is so terrific.
It is a wonderful opportunity for the members of the department to highlight the work that they
Yeah.
do. The challenge of it is we don't have a space to do it in
Yeah.
anymore, so that's,
Go to the police department.
yeah, it's a little
Yeah,
bit
Tony?
of a dilemma there.
You also had a wonderful program on resuscitation and that kind of thing that you gave to some community groups. I don't know if you have
Still doing
time
that,
or anything,
so
but that's wonderful.
often that is spearheaded by our EMS coordinator, Leslie
Right.
Vasconcelos, along with a number of the other members of the department, doing CPR, first aid, stop the bleed, when to call 911. It's a great program because it's incredibly comprehensive and gives us, the citizens, the tools, what to do in the first couple minutes of an emergency before our staff arrives. It's a great, we have a lot of fun with that. It's a great opportunity for our staff to interact with the public and give them the tools to do those things.
Okay. Well, talk to us about your budget, please.
Sure. We're here tonight to discuss next year's fire department budget. I think it's reasonable if it's okay with you, and I'm happy to answer questions, and so is Deputy Gula, give him the hard ones, to kind of go through some of the higher level changes from last year to this year, if that's reasonable. But I'm happy to answer questions specific to those things. So with that, in the salaries side of the budget, there's a couple changes that we're proposing. One is the addition of a second deputy chief's position. And that really is a number of reasons for that. As our department continues to grow, we've been lucky to add a number of field level staff in the last year, but also the requirements from a standard standpoint, answering the rules and regulations that we work under. It's getting to be an awful lot for the administrative side of it, also to provide more oversight on the emergency medical services side of the operation. We felt that it's necessary to bring someone in at the deputy chief level to do that work. This has been named in a couple different reports that we've had done, or studies we've had done over the last 5 years, going back to 2020 with our staffing study. They recognize that as we put more boots on the ground, if you will, we're going to need sort of the administrative backbone of the building facility to support that. It was also mentioned in our strategic plan that we did in 2021. And most recently, we had a review of the EMS side of our operations, and there was a definite need that was recognized to have somebody at that level, a chief officer level, to supervise that side of the operation. As our department gets younger, we've brought in 50% of our department's been on for 3 years or less. Wow. We're delivering high-quality emergency services, but they need that administrative support and oversight to make sure we're meeting all the needs. So that's one piece of that. That's one big one.
Yeah, that's a real big one.
Yeah. The second piece of that is related to overtime. In next year's budget, we have added some money in to send 2 members to paramedic school, which I think opens up a larger conversation of the staffing challenges at the fire department. Just to provide a little bit of history and sort of backstory, we did go to the town in the fall of 2023 to add 8 positions. And that's sort of had been coming for a number of years. I worked on that project for probably 3.5 years leading up to that. When we originally budgeted for those positions, we wanted them all to be paramedics, because about 70% of the emergency calls we respond on are medicals. Through that hiring process, we've hired 5 EMTs, 2 more that are in various levels of paramedic training, and we still have an open position. So we weren't able to meet that 8 number, but we really still have a need. And going forward, as we have more retirements in the department, we have a number of retirements upcoming in the next couple of years, we're going to have challenges getting paramedics. So, perfect world, we would hire them as paramedics coming in the door. But we're unable to do that, and that's a national problem. It's only exacerbated here on Cape Cod. So we have to look at it a different way. And so our intent is with that covers the backfill and overtime related to it. There's another line item within the budget that covers the tuition and those associated costs. But to invest in current department members, send them to paramedic school, and then probably continue to do that for a few years going forward. The challenge of paramedic school, from the time they start to the time they're certified, is somewhere between 18 and 24 months. It's a long time.
And it's off Cape, right?
There is a program at Cape Cod Community College
Did
that is
reinstated?
top-notch.
Yeah, good.
But it's just the nature of the program and how it's designed is a long time. We've had a number of discussions with the leaders at Cape Cod Community College of restructuring or adding a second cohort that would be on a different timeline. We're a ways from implementing that. I'm hopeful that that will happen because the current design of the program is you go 2 nights a week and Saturdays, and then you go into hospital time and then into field time, but it takes time. We would hope to move, our suggestion is that they have a second cohort that goes Monday through Friday for 6.5 months, just to speed that time. Those firefighters that would go to paramedic school under that schedule, they wouldn't come to the firehouse. Their full-time assignment for that period of time would be to go to school. We're working on that, but we're not there yet. But in the meantime, we have to look out, and it takes so long to get these people
Yeah, the
up to
teachers who
speed.
teach that course are part-time teachers.
Yes,
That's why,
exactly.
yeah.
It's an excellent, excellent, excellent program, but it's just the nature of how it sort of runs. And it's a lot of material. It's a very intense program. But we've got to look at how we're going to build that staff out going forward. So that's one of the things that we did identify in our budget is $50,000 to cover overtime related to those 2 members, and then another $30,000 to cover tuition and associated
Chief,
costs.
is there a full-time position, is there a possibility to research a full-time paramedic education curriculum, and we send these 3 EMT hungry people, put them up in a hotel for a time, and then get them certified? Is that something that we could do?
It's out there, but I'm not sure it's close by, and I'm not sure what's in Massachusetts right now.
I know that because the Four Seas one used to have to go over the bridge. It was always a Four Seas, went over the bridge, came back.
Yep.
But I would just say, let's go for it. Let's see if that's even a possibility.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you didn't think of this, but
We're looking at all those options. And just one more, not to belabor that, but as part of this, we did put this into the budget because it's necessary.
Yes.
In a parallel track, Deputy Gula, who handles all of our grants, has submitted a grant in a similar track to fund this. But we just don't know when and if that's going to even show up. But as part of that, we felt that that was an appropriate use of a grant. There was a grant opportunity, so we put in for it. But it's a federal grant. We don't know what that's going to look like.
Presumably, training never stops, right? They come and they certified, but they have to.
Yeah, so, go ahead.
So, for the recertification, the training programs are local?
So the paramedics are required to complete 60 hours of continuing education every 2 years, along with a number of other courses and programs outside of that. So they have to attend a refresher training that's 30 hours. They have to attend medical control rounds 4 times a year, those kind of things. And the EMT's in a similar way, not to the same number of hours, but yes.
So when you say they have to attend, do they physically have to go to a place?
For portions of it, much of it is done through virtual learning now, so that there is portions that they can do at the station, on their computer, that kind of thing. But there are portions of these programs that they have to go, and usually it's to the community college. We use their facilities, and they have to perform the skills in a controlled environment so they can validate.
What I'm heading to is a little bit different. 2 days ago, we saw the first general idea of a new fire station emergency. Could we have some of these programs here and offer them for the rest of the Outer Cape or whatever,
So within the concept of the fire station, we're still sort of drawing down on the concept of it. But within that facility, one of the sure needs is a training room, which we don't have now. But also in that is a medical simulation lab. And that would be the idea, is that we could use not only that for our personnel, we're number one, but also as a regional asset, because then we wouldn't have to travel to the community college or other locations to do those physical things. There will always, in my opinion, be a need for hands-on training in the medical field. And surely if you look at the medical field, there's the virtual or simulation piece of it has grown exponentially in all aspects of healthcare. We're looking, as part of that facility, that would be
I'm thinking in the spirit of regionalization, quote unquote, that if all the other fire departments around us sent their people here, they wouldn't be sending their fees over the bridge or wherever, right?
Yeah. That's what we're thinking too.
Chief, with these recently trained, highly skilled individuals where you're very supply constrained, how do we protect ourselves from being poached by neighboring fire departments who say, you guys in Orleans do a great job training, and now we'll hire at EMT and not have to put up with 24 months prepared?
That's a real and present challenge throughout the industry. I know the police department struggles with a similar thing, and we've been lucky so far. But as our staff has expanded and the need for paramedics and EMTs is all over the place, how do we get people to stay with us? And always, that's going to be compensation and benefits. I mean, there's no two ways around that. But additionally, it's facilities, it's training opportunities, it's culture and call volume. That's a worry that keeps me up at night.
Can the burden, however, be shared? Could the employee make a commitment to you that I'm going to be here 3-5 years?
You mean sign a contract?
Yeah, or have it be part of make a commitment, a contract. And you're putting a lot of money and a lot of faith in me.
We have some language, it's subject to collective bargaining, some language in there related to the fire academy as far as reimbursement, which is very hard to actually deliver on. As far as the paramedic training, we would probably look to do a similar thing, but we don't have that language in there currently.
It may be illegal.
Yeah, I think it would be challenging, to be honest with you, but
if we had it.
yeah, it's hard to enforce it.
Yeah.
But we invest, the town invests in the fire department and then in these staff members. It's significant to outfit them. It's significant to train them. the return on that investment, if they stay here over 30, you can't put a price on that. But we've got such talented people, we want to keep them here, but we've got new staff that live farther away than we traditionally have had people live. And how many, my worry, this is what I worry about, is I have an employee who drives by 10 fire stations to get here.
Exactly, yeah.
What is keeping that awesome firefighter from driving to Orleans when they could cut their drive time in half and make more money and have a better benefit package? That's a real concern.
Down, you wouldn't want that kind of person.
Yeah.
That's so obvious.
Like but that's a real thing. To get into those, the compensation and benefit packages and what we see in the other fire departments, it's hard to pass up. I get it.
Yeah.
What I think Orleans has to offer is some of the other things that, like, if you're a paramedic and you're 30 minutes from the hospital, there is an opportunity to practice some of those skills. Like, we don't want bad things to happen to people. Don't get me wrong. But if you're trained, you want to use some of those skills. And that 30-minute window that we sort of have on the way to the hospital is a good opportunity to do that. That's appealing to some. From our fire response standpoint, if there's a fire somewhere in the Lower Cape, we're probably going to it. That's an opportunity to use those skills. That can be attractive to some people, but it's not all that. And in these days and times with the cost of living,
Is there any poaching opportunities that we could take advantage
I
of?
was just thinking that.
we're always looking.
We could
We're always
be a
looking.
poacher rather than the poachee.
Yeah, we would, as Kim has said, we would like to be the employer of choice.
Yeah.
And that's something we aspire to within the fire department as well. And there's a lot of pieces to that. Right now, part of that challenge is compensation, and part of it is, when you look at our facility,
Yeah.
it's,
Tony wants to.
you can look everywhere else, it's got a newer fire station. And that's not us versus them, but we're working in a shoebox right now.
Yeah.
And that can be a turnoff to people.
Yeah, Tony?
There's several things. Is there any opportunity to offer support for residences for firefighters and EMTs that where we might be able to provide some sort of residence for them and tie them up?
Tony, you live in a big house, don't you? You can just offer
I could offer my house.
room and board.
You weren't here earlier in the beginning of being, I had a wonderful experience in a tough situation where I took a ride with you guys to the hospital from my house, and I mentioned that at the opening comments, and one of the staff on the truck is a newly hired guy. So, and I also wanted to, at that time, I pointed out the lockbox service that you guys brought. In any event, that was one thought. The other thought is when we build this firehouse for you, is there an opportunity to rent out not a medical facility, a medical training facility or something like that to other towns close by so that we can generate some revenue? I'm just looking for other ways that Orleans can generate revenues.
I think where we're going with that is thinking about regionalization of resources. Regionalizing as in training, regionalizing as in vehicle maintenance, and pooling resources together. There's X number of ambulances and fire trucks. If there were one dedicated mechanic who knew how to take care of some of these things, where we share that mechanic around, I mean, to what extent would that have an impact on our ability to need to buy the kind of equipment we are? I mean, because when you talk about one piece of equipment for $1.6 million, that 100-foot ladder, I mean, who is it that can take care of something like that? So that, and from a budget point of view, we're making that capital of an investment in there. Is that something where we could be sharing that resource and maintenance with our other towns?
When it comes to the shared services piece of this puzzle, it is something that we do constantly think about. It is an area that is intriguing and up and coming. There's a lot of things that go on already.
Yes.
So let me just, if you'll indulge me, just a couple things that already happen. Like, there is significant cooperation and sharing of resources on a daily basis when there's multiple calls going on. Where ambulances are going into other towns, ambulances are coming into ours to cover calls. That's a constant thing. When it comes to fire response, when there's a report of a house fire somewhere, we do not have enough staff on duty in Orleans to meet the national standards as far as fire response. We'd have to have close to 20 people on duty all the time. But we share that response with our neighbors. So a report of a house fire comes in Orleans, we get help from the 911, at the time of the 911 call, Eastham, Brewster, and Harwich respond, and we do the same out to cover that. We're sharing those training opportunities when we can. The paramedic training, as an example, the paramedic recertification training that we do, that they have to do, that's all in this. We're doing it as a group through a regional group that all of our EMTs and paramedics are participating in. Now, with the new fire rescue station, and we have that facility there, the training space there, is there an opportunity to open that training up and host it there? Absolutely. And is there a potential revenue? I think there is. Is it lots and lots of money? Probably not, but there's an opportunity, and now staff doesn't have to travel from all over the place. They can come here. And we sort of envision the new station having other training opportunities built into it that we don't have currently, particularly for firefighting, for practicing search and rescue and things like. We just don't have those facilities here. And many of those facilities have been taken away on Cape Cod with the shutdown of the Barnstable County Academy a number of years ago.
So one thought here just struck me in the face, you know. Your total budget is just a hair under the elementary school budget. The population of people like Tony and me who need your services is more than half of the town, you know, and we pay taxes, and so I think the way we present the need has to be a little bit broader, you know, because you know, if you only focus on you know, I need more spare wheels or whatever, you know, it trivializes the issue, you know. It just, I was just looking at the total here, and I was thinking, oh my God, you know, 140 kids, you know, versus 3,000 people like Tony and me who need the.
You say the same thing about the Council of Aging as well.
Yeah.
They serve the largest demographic cohort that we have. Are just
I mean,
stretching to get.
what I'm saying is realistically, we're not going to give half the budget to that kind of activity, but putting it into context, if the need is for another $40,000, $50,000 for something, yes, we have to be careful. We have to figure out if we can pay it, given the way the budget is structured now. But, you know.
Especially, I found it very compelling when you said 70% of your calls are EMT.
Yep.
So let's say you do 3,000 calls a year. 2,100 calls are sending EMTs out to try and save someone.
Well,
And your
I think
call
what
volume
it,
last year was over 2,400,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
so, I just want to say it right.
Yeah.
So 2024, we did 2,812 calls, 2,812. And of those calls, 1,174 were transports to Cape Cod Hospital or another.
Well, just as, you know,
So-
going 70 times 30 is a lot
Yeah.
easier than 70 times 28, 64.
But just as, just a quick data point, when we look at those numbers of calls, they kind of bounce around a little bit, but between 2020 and 2024, we've gone from 2634 to 2812. There's been fluctuations. There was a big fluctuation last year to this year, or from 2023 to 2024. I can't explain it sometimes, but
But as Nick points out, I think those are compelling numbers. You're on call all the time. You're responding to medical and health emergencies of our citizens, young, middle-aged, and old, and you're doing it all the time. And I think you need a lot more.
Chief, you probably know this. From the time the 911 was called to the time that that person got off the phone, the ambulance was on its way. And that is incredible service, I think. And it's the kind of thing that old people in this town really need.
That's right.
It's quality of life. We talk about recreation as quality of life. For one segment of the population, that is totally true. But for the other part of the population, quality of life depends on what you do, you know?
Well, I think what I'm sensing from our group, Chief and Deputy Chief, is that we feel there's more of an urgency to get these, because you need to be an EMT before you're a paramedic. You can't just be a paramedic. So you've got some hungry EMTers. So let's get them to a full-time paramedic school, and let's pay for it. But it takes 9 months to get a paramedic.
Takes,
So I'm just trying to put this all in perspective for people, because, I mean, so I'm a nurse, and I don't know why I'm on FinCom, but I am. And I'm a nurse. I don't know how that equates, but I like money. So I like money talk, I should. But so I like you guys and what you do. And so there's a sense of urgency here from us, and you're not sleeping at night. So how can we get these EMTers to be paramedics, and how can we get them to a full-time program?
really, looking at the full-time program
Yeah.
is part of that. And we're continuing to explore that. In the short term, we've got to get people enrolled into the fall. We got to start the process. And
Yeah,
as
yeah.
this, hopefully this full-time program comes to life here on Cape Cod, because I feel personally very strongly to the program that's at Cape Cod Community College.
Yes.
The quality of students that are coming out of that program are top-notch. And that's where I think the community college should reflect the needs of the community. And from where I sit, the needs of the community are more paramedic education. There are surely other things in this community that we need. I'm not disputing that, but from the lens I look through, we need paramedics. And so
The
we're
fire chiefs used to be the lead of the
Right.
teaching.
That's
So is
correct.
that still the case?
No, program, so there's been evolutions in that program. And in the 80s and 70s, 80s, and 90s, the program on Cape Cod, the way it was run for paramedic education, I'm in the Wayback Machine right now, every fire department had a seat in that program every fall. And then there was a change in the industry. When I got hired, when the deputy got hired, there used to be hundreds of people applying for these jobs. That's not happening right now. So we have to revisit how we do this and look to potentially go back to that model where each town had a seat. And I am.
I like that
advocate
because
for that.
I took that course.
Yeah.
I was with, it was within the past 6 years, and and then the students found out I was a nurse. So then I had like 5 young men in my kitchen feeding them, and we did our own personal training. But I think the hands-on approach and the fire chief's involvement, I think that's how you can bring back that full-time.
We're looking at this at the chiefs level.
Yeah.
I will say that the county chiefs that I'm involved in, is a very tight-knit group.
Yes.
And we collectively are recognizing this and collaborating on how can we push this through the college, how do we get the legislature involved, how do we get the funding? And it's a complicated puzzle, so it takes some time. But the need is
But
very,
there's
very
desire,
clear. Yeah,
I
there's
think,
desire to
yeah.
collaborate and work on it, and to get it done. Sometimes the wheels of justice turn slow.
Peter.
So,
Peter?
sorry.
Yeah, Chief, as you look forward to the new, station and the design, and you look at some of these kind of operational opportunities around, training, as well as maybe kind of comfort for those folks that have to spend a lot of time at the station that, are coming from far away. Are you kind of trying to integrate some of that into the design so that the building maybe creates some opportunities, not only for training, but for recruitment?
I think that's a fair question. And I will say that as part of our sort of early thinking about this new fire rescue facility and what it should look like, and again, we're still kind of really early through this, the campus study and that, but we have that concept that came out this week through the architectural firm. But things that are included in that building and sort of our overarching themes. One is the response time. That building needs to be built around response time. is how fast can firefighter A get from wherever they are into their gear and onto a piece of apparatus and out the door. And we know that the building we're in right now, it takes about 2.5 minutes to do that because it's the layout of the building. So the concept of the new building would be to make that as short of a time as possible. Second, to sort of answer Peter's question, is what is the health and safety of our staff within that building? Because we know that there's a high rate of cancer within the firefighting industry. And the previous design of fire stations, that just wasn't, we didn't know about it. Now we know a lot more about it. So you'll see within the newer concepts of the fire station, and if you look at the materials that went out this week, you'll see red, yellow, and green sort of color coding on the floor plan of the new fire station. And that sort of differentiates between the red zone is where the most contaminants often are. That's where the vehicles are. That's where the turnout gear is, those kind of things. The yellow is the transition. How do we separate those contaminants and those carcinogens from the kitchen, the living quarters, the fitness area? And that there's separations in that. There's airlocks and airflow, and those things are considered as part of it. So to ensure that the long-term health of the firefighters is part of it. Fitness area is very key to the fire. They put on 70 pounds of gear when they put their stuff on, and they're carrying people up and down stairs. It's not a luxury. That's a necessity in our line of work, that they have to have the ability to work out. So there's a fitness facility in that. There's individual bunk rooms that are in there, so there is room, to get some downtime. Most of our staff is working, on paper, they work 24 hours at a time. Much of the time, they're working more than that. They're working 34, 38, occasionally 48 hours in a row. And that's a long time. So we've built some space in the concept and that comes down to bunk rooms. And like, I can tell you after doing this job for 25 years that if you're in a bunk room, you're not sleeping, you're resting. So having that space for them to have downtime is important. We've got a number of bunk rooms that are on there, and part of the reason that they're on there is that those firefighters that are coming from far away, if they have a super busy night, or they're working a triple and they're back in the morning, that they don't have to drive back to their home that's 45 minutes or an hour or more away. So we've got some room, and that's part of that concept, is that, people look at like, why do you have that many bunk rooms? And that's why, is it? And then the storms and things like that, we need to bring extra staffing in. That's where that comes, is addressing those kind of things, and they're hard to do in the building that we have now.
So for the sake of people who might be watching, and we don't know, last Tuesday you had that presentation, the architect's presentation. Presumably you worked closely with him in the
Correct.
piecing of the...
Yep.
And the presentation was pretty impressive. I was very happy with what I heard. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, you should.
Fantastic, it was fantastic.
Yeah, and a lot of the issues that you were raising were raised then. I mean, and there's a picture there. Now, it's not going to be the final design, but the pieces are there.
Right. We've been through a pretty extensive process. When you look back on we've been talking about this for a long time, and we've had a number of studies done, so we've been through a number of iterations, and what was presented this week through the Galante and the campus study is not the final design of the fire station, but it get us a concept, and these are the things that we've looked at that we know should be part of this, and these are the best practices. And when I look at that concept, and again, it is not the final product, but every inch of that building I can speak to, and why it's in there, and why it's valuable, and why it's important to the members who work in that building, but more importantly, why the public should have those spaces in their fire rescue facility and how it actually will serve them. And every inch of that building I can speak to. That's one thing that I'm really happy about that concept, is that, again, it's not the final, and we've got work to do, but there's everything is explainable, and it's the way it should be.
And part of the challenge going forward is not just getting it designed and built, but also getting people to understand why it is the way it is, Mm-hmm. And I think that what they started with for a presentation for the uninitiated on Tuesday, it's great,
And just one more thing, I don't don't want to belabor the point, but location is really important with this, is that other town facilities don't have response time needs like a fire rescue facility does. Location is important. It just can't be anywhere. It has to be in the right location that services all sections of the town in a fair and efficient and fast way, if you will. And that's why we are where we are, is that 58 Eldridge Parkway can be 8 minutes or less, 99.6% of the properties in Orleans. And that's pretty good.
Now, Tony?
At Elaine's direction, I read your strategic plan, and it appears that most everything has been done with regard to most things. Is there anything that you still need to accomplish besides building the firehouse?
That strategic plan is constantly, morphing. And where we were in 2021 when we did that is different than where we are in 2025. But some of the major things, major things that we've accomplished that were recommended in the strategic plan was addressing staffing. Looking at, sort of training and going forward and recruitment and retention. And we've got work to do in those things. The facility is always kind of the big thing right now. And then we've got to look out, like we're talking a lot about paramedic training right now, but we've also got to look at training our staff in different, ensuring that our supervisors have appropriate training. And that's stuff that's in the strategic plan that we're trying to now work on professional development and things like that we hadn't done to the level we should have done in the years past.
Do you have an update for the plan in the works?
We're looking to hopefully do that in the next year or so.
Because
it's coming up. It's 2021 to 2025, and the face of our organization, as far as the makeup of it, has changed with the addition of all these new people. They're wonderful. Things are shifting.
when Ed and I came as orientation, the strategic plan was in the future.
Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun.
The new guy on my truck really did a nice job.
Jeff, you brought up one thing that clicked something in my brain. Under which line item in here are turnout suits?
That is in our motor vehicle and equipment, so it's tied to.
Motor vehicle and equipment.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It's 587000, motor vehicle and equipment stabilization.
Oh, okay. Every time you get a new firefighter, do they get their own turnout suit?
Yep. So
So it's exclusive to that particular firefighter?
is,
You got a
yeah.
new firefighter, they need a new turnout suit. How much is a turnout suit?
what are we looking right now?
4,600?
Yeah. And every firefighter gets 2.
Every firefighter gets two. And I think I had this conversation with you some time ago, that it's the turnout suits
Yep.
that have the massive amounts of PFAS that is the cancer causing. What is going on in terms of this?
Great.
When you talk about the safety of what's going on, I mean, can you address that a little
Sure,
bit?
I'd love to, Elaine, thank you. One of the things that's been identified in the turnout gear that firefighters wear, which is very specific for heat and thermal and water protection, it's very complicated, goes through a lot of testing, it's super expensive. But one of the main chemicals that's in it is PFAS. It has been for a long time. So there's been tremendous research into firefighter cancer, and identified the PFAS in the turnout gear as one of the potential causes. The challenge that has been in our industry is removing PFAS from the turnout gear changed the performance of the turnout gear. And there wasn't a suitable replacement, if you will, that met the standards. What is happening now is that there is now PFAS gear starting to come, PFAS-free gear come out. I will say that for the last 4 or 5 years, the turnout gear that we have been purchasing has a very limited amount of PFAS in it because they hadn't taken it out of all the layers. So we've tried but what we're seeing now is the PFAS-free gear coming out.
Terrific.
The initial materials that were coming out, I have reservations about how it was, the durability of it, the first iterations. And so we've held off a little bit of doubling down and looking to get it all, because I want to make sure it's a good investment. And once that, I think we're going to see that in the near future, that that turnout gear is widely available, and we will look to re-outfit everyone. There's discussion at the state level, because there was significant conversation and legislation that happened at the Massachusetts State House related to removing PFAS and outlawing it in turnout gear, we're expecting that there may be some funding that comes through
Oh.
to help offset the
That'd be
cost of
terrific.
that. What that's going to look like is very preliminary. That's going to be a factor in that. But I will say, and this is kind of a warning, if you will, but as that PFAS-free gear comes into market and is widely available, and we're confident in its level of protection and performance, we will look to replace everyone's turnout gear within the
Right.
department. I just don't want to put them in a product that is potentially substandard, and then make a bad investment that way. But as that comes on the line, I would expect that in another year or so that, we'll have to see what the state does as far as funding, but basically outfitting everybody in the department in one big swoop. And
huge.
that's not going to be inexpensive.
I heard that, 46
I
times two,
recognize that,
9,000.
but to do it and do it right is
Right.
an investment.
$9,000 per firefighter, and how many firefighters did you say you
so
had?
there's 33 of us, so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a big number.
$100,000.
That's not lost on me, like,
But cheap in the
yeah.
course of a life,
When
expense
you
of a
look
life.
at the national statistics on firefighter
I know.
cancer and what that is, and the rates of cancer are so much higher in the fire service, and there's a number of factors, not just
Right.
PFAS and turnout gears, but the typical payout on a pension from when a firefighter retires to the time they die nationally is 7 to 9 years. So we have an obligation
Absolutely, we do.
to look at
Keep
this.
everyone
And
safe.
to, it is not perfect, and our job is dangerous, and we know that when we go into it.
Yeah.
If there's things that we can engineer out of it
Yeah.
to make it safer, I think Deputy Chief and I have a responsibility to our staff to do that.
And Tony?
Turning to a different direction, there was a story in the Wall Street Journal about the consolidation of manufacturers of firefighting equipment, and that is, and it was mostly vehicles, from trucks to cars to, and there was a big part of that story was ordering off-the-shelf type as opposed to vehicles that fit your particular town. What have you done about that?
We've been victims of it. So as an example, as you recall, we ordered a ladder truck in January of '24. That was at the Fall Town Meeting in 2023, where it went from 1.6 to $2.1 million in a very short amount of time at this part of this. Once we ordered it, we were told 39 months is the delivery time on that vehicle. As part of the specification process for that, we looked at stock trucks, as far as which of those sort of off-the-shelf trucks. There were none available, and when they do become available, talking to the vendors, you have about 6 minutes from the time that email goes out from the manufacturer. There's a stock truck coming up before someone pays cash for it. It is incredibly cutthroat. Even during the design of that particular truck, there was an order had gotten canceled. And we were told by the representative of the manufacturer, hey, a truck very similar to the one you guys are looking to build just got canceled, let's look at it. And unfortunately, it was actually longer than the truck we were trying to get, and that's a problem because we're trying to, the specifications as far as getting it into places is important. So we weren't able to jump on that. So that's what we're running into. We're running into the parts piece of this when a truck goes down. Waiting on parts. We've got a truck that's been down since mid-January. We're waiting on fittings for the pump for it. We don't know when they're going to show up. We have an ambulance on order. We've had an ambulance on order since August of 2023. We're expected in the second quarter of 2026. And some of this is there was issues getting chassis, and now it's issues production. Is that once these vehicles go into production, like our ladder truck, it's about 7 months from the time it starts on the build line to the time it drives out of there. But there's so many orders ahead of it that these factories don't have the capacity. And there's only a handful of manufacturers really out there. They have it. So it's a real thing. When we have parts go down, it takes a long time. And ordering, we've looked at that as far as the ambulance replacement cycle. We're adjusting the ambulance replacement cycle just so we can get the orders in. because it takes so long. It used to be when we ordered an ambulance, you go to Maytown meeting, you order an ambulance in mid-July, you'd have it by the next summer. And now we're talking 3+ years. And in the meantime, we're running trucks that are way past their replacement. I mean, we've got, and also putting additional wear and tear on the other vehicles in the fleet as part of that. So it's worrisome. It's just constant. No matter how we design those vehicles to protect from wear, it's always something. It's always something.
Any other questions? David?
Sort of financial question. When you mentioned in the report, which I have not read, so shame on me, but it projects future developments or needed changes. When we approved the 8, not we, but the town approved the 8 additional, I presume in the report it said you'd need another deputy chief at that time. I don't think we talked about it, or I just might have missed it. And I have no problem with it. I just want to know, looking forward, you've got a lot of new things happening, new building, talking about training, all that kind of stuff. Do you anticipate the need for additional, and I don't know what the staff would be, HR or whatever. Do you anticipate needing that?
I think,
Just for management expectations, so people
Yeah.
kind of have
Sure.
a clue for,
when we added the 8 positions, that was a significant increase in the number of.
Oh, yeah.
Adding that number of people to a department our size is almost unheard of. And so we're so grateful to the town to supporting that, but
huge.
we were decades behind in our staffing model, and if we had the opportunity to go wind it back, we would have done 2 or 4, in increments, but we were at a crisis point to do such a big addition. I think a few years out from now, we're gonna probably have to revisit that as the town grows with some of the housing that's coming online and what the service demands are. Are we gonna have to add another person per shift? Potentially. But at some point in time, I think we're gonna sort of cap out. Like we're at 7 now, the fire station, which, the new station conceptually is a 50-year building that has room for 12 on shift. That's sort of, I think, the range that we're in, but the timeline in which that happens, I think we're not looking to immediately add beyond the deputy chief's position in the next couple of years.
Okay. John, I remember you had some specific questions. So anything you want to bring up?
Well, this one is a little off budget. It does cause a strain on the budget. And that's a question about false alarms. And the reason I'm asking that is I lived in Jamaica Plain before retiring to Orleans, and our condo building had a problem with the panel and we had false alarms. I was next to the Mary Curley School. We had false alarms. And so the fire people directed me to this report. It's out of date a little bit, from the National Fire Protection Association, that fire alarms had gone up 230% since 1980. Now, I don't have any information here in Orleans, but clearly false alarms put a strain on your budget. So this is not a direct budget question, but I was just curious about our situation.
We do respond to a number of false alarms, but we also respond to a number of alarms that are actual emergencies, and it's hard to differentiate that. If you look in some of these other reports that are out there, the dollar loss in fires across the United States is continuing to skyrocket. So dollar loss is up. Fire deaths are actually up nationally right now. So we treat those alarms as real until we get there. But there are a number of false alarms. And when we recognize a place that, like you said, a condo complex or something that's having a number of false alarms, we'll often work with those people to try and address that. There is a mechanism to fine. We very rarely do that. Usually by the time it tips the bylaw for fining, the problem is resolved. So there isn't, and the fine does surely not one-for-one covering the cost of response. But we do look at that, but we're constantly looking, these alarms. And as people put alarm, we're all for smoke alarms. That's the thing. It's like those smoke alarms, fire detections that save lives. There's a clear correlation to that, but there's false alarms associated with that. And unfortunately, there's a cost of response for that.
Always in the middle of the night, too.
Yeah, always.
Okay, any more questions?
Great job.
Yeah, then I'd say thanks.
Very much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate
Thanks
the
for so much.
opportunity to come in and speak with you all, and we welcome any and everyone to come visit our current, the fire rescue station, and learn about the new one, but come see the current one, and come in and see our staff and tell them how wonderful they're doing, because they are rock stars.
No, Melissa does a good job answering the phone.
Melissa's the brains of the operation.
That's terrific.
You know, not to take Tony's word, but the staff that he met is representative of the staff that works in the fire
Right.
department. Every day, they go out of the door and respond to this community and solve problems and help people, and we're lucky to have them. And it's an honor to be part of that organization and hopefully support them, and we only ask that the citizens do the same.
Thanks for your service.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, it's been 60 years since I went through firefighting school in the Coast Guard to put out fires.
Ready to go.
And I still remember the last day walking out. We had gas masks on, and there was a guy by the door just before the exit, and he pulled it off because you get used to having the gas mask. I can still taste that. It's been 60 years.
Anyway, thanks for all you do for our community. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thanks, Chief. Deputy Chief.
So moving on to the next item on the agenda, updates. Any announcements? Tony?
At the Freshwater Committee, they've put in their request for the warrant. There were several numbers. I don't know what it is, and I thought we'd wait till it comes out of the management before we mention it. But I will say that all the money they asked for is multiplied so many times because the scientists on that committee really work hard with a huge army of volunteers to test the water and send the tests into the chemical or the
APCC.
places to do it, to refine it and take care of it.
Okay, good, thank you. Any liaison reports? Everybody speak at once?
I mean, the big one is the campus study, and we've talked about it.
Yeah. All right, then, moving on to exciting FinCom meeting schedule. Our next meeting down here is March 13th at 5:30, but I want to point out that there is a Select Board budget review on March 11th from 12 to 2. We are invited to go, but it is not considered to be one of our meetings. We could participate, but unlike the following day, March 12th, the 5 o'clock, so notice the change in timing there, that is a joint meeting with the Select Board. Okay,
At noon.
no.
At 5 o'clock.
Oh.
March 11th, the budget review of the Select Board, not a joint meeting, is 12 to 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
March 12th, joint meeting, 5 PM. Then we are scheduled to have a meeting Thursday, March 13th at 5:30, and I am recommending that we skip that March 13th meeting because some of us will have been to the 11th and 12th meeting.
I second that motion.
You have to make the motion.
Except the thought that came to my mind, though, is, do we need to reschedule that a week later?
I think that's a good idea, because we still have a lot of work as a FinCom to do.
Move it from the 13th
So we will move it.
and move everything back a week?
I don't know, we can move everything back a week.
So why do I have the March 12th meeting at 3 PM? So it's at 5 PM?
Because that was yesterday, it got changed
Okay,
today.
I'm just making sure.
No, that's okay, it got changed today at
Believe
about
me,
2 o'clock.
I'm a little,
So on the 11th, there's a operating budget review meeting, and we can participate and ask
Yes.
questions and,
Yes, but it's not a joint meeting.
okay,
It would recognize you.
all right.
I think what's going on, reading between the lines, Kim's been out for a good 10 days.
Yeah.
And I think she needs to pull some loose ends together before we have an official joint meeting.
she
what
hasn't
I'm
been
reading.
out, she's been working from home.
She's been working from,
Yeah.
I mean, she's been sick.
Yes, but she's
she's
still.
still working.
She's working.
Betcha.
If she rested, I gotta talk to her, what can I say? She needs to rest to recover.
You nurse.
Yeah.
We'll have the school budgets by the
I
11th.
believe-
Yesterday, we heard at select board meeting that the region budget is still with the Oracle up in Delphi,
Yeah.
you know? So the promise is that by the next week, we will have at least the final draft, you know?
Final rough draft.
Elaine, are we rescheduling the 13th meeting for the
The
20th?
20th, is that what you want to do?
Yes, so here's how the sequence will go.
I think we are getting very close to the point where we will have more substantive things to talk about, and I would hesitate to not have that meeting, you know?
Yeah,
Right.
but is the room available on March 20th?
The Thursday slot is always ours. The question is whether or not it's 5:30 or 7, and that's dependent on whether the CPC is meeting.
Oh, I see.
CPC is unlikely to be meeting.
Yeah, and they're unlikely to
Always
be
like
meeting.
the first week of the month they do that. That's why.
Right,
Okay.
right,
5:30 is probably
right.
open.
So,
And also, I sent you today an article that reports on the CPC's final recommendations. It's fascinating, you know?
so the sequence would
Didn't we
be,
vote as a town to have their rulings go through the town meeting, voting on them?
we voted as an omnibus.
Yeah, we vote the whole thing together.
But wasn't that going to be, wasn't there going to be at the town meeting, their rulings going to be?
Yes, they have a warrant article. We vote that single warrant
I see.
article, all projects at once.
I see.
The article lists each project.
Okay.
Okay, so to review, the meeting schedule would be Tuesday, March 11th, 12 to 2. Wednesday, March 12th, joint meeting with the Select Board, 5 PM. Thursday, March 13th, canceled and/or postponed to March 20th. Probably 5:30, but I will confirm that. And I think we should still meet on March 27th, that 5:30, and April 10, 5:30.
And keep the schedule.
Wait a
forward.
second. This is getting difficult.
No, it's not.
How many meetings are we going to have the month of March?
Welcome to the world of the
Wow,
Finance Committee.
This is budget season.
Hey,
All right.
This is the new Finance Committee light.
No, I don't see it as light. I see it as acute, intensive, short, and fast.
What is
Yes.
the main goal of the 11th meeting, 12 to 2?
That is where Kim is going to be reviewing
You
the
can't go to
budget.
that. You can go to that?
I'm
12
not, I'm
o'clock?
going to be.
Yeah, you're not, yeah, you're going to be
I'm
working.
just going to
But
Zoom.
the 12th is a hearing, so theoretically on the 12th,
So the 12th.
anybody in the audience, we will convene both committees, and anybody in the audience can throw tomatoes or whatever it is that they do, you
The
know?
charter requires that we have a joint meeting with the Select Board.
Right, that's the 12th.
That's the 12th
I was
meeting,
asking about why is the 11th?
because Kim asked to have a
It's
meeting with the
it's
Select Board.
a working session for the Select Board, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you letting your work get in the way of the Finance Committee
Yes, I
meetings?
am.
Wow, see. So, and 5:30.
Okay,
on
any
March
other questions
Work, I
about the
remember that.
schedule? I'll send this out tomorrow as soon as I get the March 20th timing clarified.
Great.
Everybody okay with that? All right. In which case, next item, do I have a motion to?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Thank you.